Welcome to Study Session 13, User Studies. Introduction. For libraries to be able to meet the information needs of their users, they need to conduct user studies. This should not be an activity that is done once and then forgotten. It should be a continuous form of activity. This is because the information needs of users are not static. This study session therefore introduces you to the need for user studies, what constitutes user studies, and the main steps for conducting user studies. Learning outcomes. At the end of this study session, you should be able to 1. Highlight the need for the user studies. 2. Explain the steps for conducting user studies. Need for user studies. User studies deal with the process of determining the profile of the users in terms of demographic and personal information, in an attempt to understand their information needs and information-seeking behavior in order to provide information services that will meet their information needs. User studies are specifically conducted in order to 1. Design an effective and efficient information system and service. 2. Provide a new course of action to introduce information products and services that will address the needs of users. 3. Evaluate the effectiveness and efficiency of existing information service and system. 4. Determine if the library is meeting up with its predetermined goals and objectives. 5. Improve the current state of library services. User studies can be conducted on an individual user basis or collectively as a group. Powell expressed that user characteristics such as frequency of library and information use, purpose of use, types of library and information use, attitude and opinions regarding libraries, reading patterns, level of satisfaction, demographic data, personality, lifestyle, and awareness of library resources and services all form part of user studies. User characteristics could be internal or external to the individual. They may also be classified as sociological, demographic, psychological, personality, work-related, organizational, professional, and so on. Some specific characteristics of interest in user studies are age, experience, gender, level of education, performance, productivity, creativity, motivation, emotional stability, temperament, interest, personal idiosyncrasies, productivity, communication, citation and other activities, nature of work or function, various roles, responsibilities, and status of users have also to be understood in user study. Steps for conducting user studies. In order to conduct effective user studies, the following steps are important. Selection and formulation of research problem, literature review, methodology, interpretation of results, dissemination of results. Selection and formulation of research problem. In order to conduct user studies, the aspects to be studied must be selected. This constitutes the research problem, which can be developed from the comments of users, personal observations, or through literature search. Research problem is a foundation for every user studies. For example, if a librarian observes that users rarely use serials in the library, in an attempt to improve the use of that information source, a user study may be initiated. The lack of use of serials is the research problem in this example. Once the problem has been formulated properly, the next steps in user studies can be taken. Literature review. This summarizes, interprets, and critically evaluates existing literature for published material in order to establish current knowledge of a subject. It helps to locate the problem within a disciplinary space in order to examine what has been done, extent of work, the outcome of researches, and areas that are left. For example, the librarian who wants to examine the reasons why serials are not used will conduct a literature review that will reveal the findings of similar studies on the same problem. This will give a sense of direction to the librarian and help in determining the best methodology that will be suited for the study. Methodology. Critical to the success of the user study is the methodology. The methodology principally includes the research design, sampling technique, and data collection methods and data analysis. A very important aspect of the methodology is the method of data collection. The commonly used methods are observation, interview, questionnaire. Observation. This is a data collection method that involves paying close attention to the behavior of users, observing and recording their actions. Observation can be done in two ways: participant observation, non-participant observation. Participant observation requires the researcher to be directly involved with the observation. For example, if the systems librarian in charge of the ICT center decides to examine the contribution of the center to research activities of students, he can compile the number of users who use the section daily by just observing and recording. In non-participant observation, the researcher is not a direct participant in the study. This can either be obtrusive or unobtrusive. It is obtrusive when the researcher is present at the place of data collection but does not get involved. It is unobtrusive when the researcher is not even present physically to observe when the behavior is being displayed, but examines a record that can give the information that can be used. Advantages of observation. 1. It allows the researcher to observe the behavior as it occurs. 2. It eliminates bias. 3. The method is free from memory errors of respondents. 4. The apathy displayed by respondents when questions are asked is eliminated. Disadvantage. The major disadvantage is that it is difficult to quantify observational techniques. Interview. This is a popular data collection method used in user studies. This technique is sometimes called oral questionnaire. This is because the researcher has the privilege of receiving verbal response to the questions posed to the respondents. An interview schedule that contains a list of all the questions that will be asked is used in order to keep the interview focused and patterned. After the research questions, researchers go along with an audio recording device to record the answers provided by the respondents. Advantages of interview. It produces high response rate. It provides the researcher to explain ambiguous questions in detail. It gives the interviewer the opportunity to render additional help if need be. Disadvantages. The information is likely to be biased. The information obtained is always subjective. The information may be difficult to organize and quantify. The method is often used to complement other methods. Questionnaire. This is the most common method of data collection. It can be described as a document or a form which contains questions designed to collect information that may be analyzed statistically from the respondents. A questionnaire could be open or closed. It is open when users are allowed to indicate their response in the available space on the form, while it is closed when the options to each item or questions have already been indicated. All what the respondent must do is to pick out of the options provided. It must be noted that a single questionnaire may be open and closed in nature. For example, if the instruction to a set of questions is, please tick as applicable using this scale: strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. This is an example of a closed questionnaire because the respondents must pick one of the options, but if in additional to that, another instruction in that same questionnaire says, others please specify, or suggest other solutions, this suggests an open approach as the opinion of the respondents may be written. Advantages of questionnaire. Anonymity of the respondent is guaranteed. It facilitates the collection of large amounts of data in a relatively short time. It is cost-effective. Disadvantages. The opportunity to clarify misleading and confusing questions is not always available. Incomplete and sometimes wrong response by the respondents due to the lack of comprehension of the questions asked. Interpretation of results. After data has been collected and analyzed, the results have to be interpreted. If quantitative method was used to analyze, the results will be presented in tables full of statistical figures. This would have to be interpreted and discussed. The interpretation of the results will reveal the disposition of the users on the research problem. This will help in the realization of the research objectives. Dissemination of results. Communication is uttermost important in research and naturally in other studies. Communication is like sharing the experience of journey and obligation of research to those who participated, cooperated, and interested in it. Dissemination of research results ensures integrating it with the existing body of knowledge and avoiding duplication of work. Others to learn from one's mistakes, anybody to replicate the study, bring in improvements to methodology and clears doubts and suspicion, if any, in the minds of people. Inasmuch as librarians conduct user studies to improve the level of library service delivery, the findings of the study should not only have implications for the library that was studied, but should be communicated across the world to the global audience. The internet has made this to be realizable. The librarian can endeavor to publish the findings in international scholarly journal in an article form. This should be done in line with the format provided by the journal body. Summary for study session 13. In this study session, you have examined the concept of user studies, which deals with the process of determining the profile of the users in terms of demographic and personal information, in an attempt to understand their information needs and information-seeking behavior. The steps in conducting user studies, which are selection and formulation of research problem, literature review and methodology, interpretation of results and discussion of results, were explained. End of study session 13. Thanks for listening.